Sintra has fallen, Renfri's dead, and we've been blasted into the world of The Witcher. Stay tuned as we discuss The Witcher Episode 1, Season 1.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, I'm Rachel Goodman, and we're here, 2020, to discuss The Witcher, the beginning's end. With me, I've got Ben, the Witcher.
Of course.
We've got Olivia, the Sorceress.
Hello, everybody.
And Katie, the Cleric. So before we dive in here, I just want to go through and ask everyone's experience with Witcher. It is a book series. It's also been turned into a game. And now, of course, the Netflix series. So Katie, why don't you start? Did you have any experience prior to watching the show with Witcher?
I knew it was a game. Haven't played it. I found out later that it was also a book. I started reading the book after I watched the episodes. So hopefully I'll be caught up eventually. So, yeah.
And Olivia...
So I actually played the game a little bit years ago, and but I didn't, think anything of it. And then I started watching, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is great. This is, similar to the game. So it is the game. But that's all I have. I didn't read any of the books yet.
And Ben?
Yeah, I want to be honest to you guys. I haven't read the book. I'm not a book reader. I can read though.
Yeah.
But I can. But the show is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the first fight scene, I was like,
Yeah.
what is going on here? I was like, couldn't believe it.
So for me, I had never heard of The Witcher. I had never played the games. I had never read the books. I love reading too, so I am a book person. I started watching episode 1. I was a little confused, so I went back and I bought The Last Wish and I started reading. I've read about 80 pages right before we get to Renfri's involvement in the books. For everyone who does not know, The Last Wish and the first 2 books in the Witcher series are actually a set of short stories. It's not until we get to the later books that it's actually part of the Witcher saga. But yeah, that was my experience. I went back and I read like the first 80 pages, went and rewatched episode 1. It made a lot more sense.
Yes.
I was like, okay. And I actually was like, I really appreciate the references because while The Last Wish is different from the series, there's a lot of references that Geralt makes and that we see in the show that ties back to the book.
And I feel like if you have already watched it, like we have already seen the whole season, if you go back and you watch it again, you're going to get a lot of references too that you missed the first time around. Because the first time I was so confused with it. Yeah.
So that means if you just watch the first episode without reading the book, it was confusing to you?
It was confusing to me,
what was it for you? What was confusing about it for you?
I didn't understand what a Witcher was.
Oh,
I was
that
like,
makes
what is
sense.
this guy? What is he doing?
That's a good point.
But then as soon as I read the book, and I did a little bit of Googling too, and they directly spelled it out. They were like, this is what the dude does. I was like, okay.
Google's like just, here it is.
Yeah.
This is what it is.
Right.
And there are plenty of articles out there that are actually like, what is this whole thing and what's going on? And it made it a lot easier for me to jump in. So speaking of jumping in, definitely stay tuned until the end after we cover the content. We have a couple of special segments. We're going to cover different elements of the show. This episode we're doing choreography. We're also going to cover a little bit of news too. We're not going to do predictions for this particular show because most of us have watched all of it already. Ben and I haven't. But
I don't do the same anymore.
yeah, we're just gonna hold off on predictions because most people have probably watched the whole show anyway, and we don't want to accidentally spoil anything. So, all that being said, let's dive in. Right off the bat, we met Geralt, and we got a taste of what he does. Something that I noticed too is that when we first meet him, the second time that I watched this, his eyes were very dark. And in the books, they specify that when he's in that state, it's because he's taken an elixir for fighting.
Oh.
Yeah, so I noticed that.
Yeah.
What did you guys make of this whole introduction and being, introduced to him this way?
Well, for me, from what I've seen of the video game pictures and screenshots and things like that, I was like, okay, yeah, this is exactly what he looks like in the pictures I've seen of him. So that was kind of nice because even if you don't know anything about how he gets to that state, because they did not say anything about it in the show, you at least kind of, if you had some sort of history with The Witcher, you knew that that's who it was.
Yeah.
Because, the dark eyes, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was an awesome opening.
Yeah.
It was a really,
intense,
well shot, really creepy, really video game-like, which is cool that they're kind of making it feel like a video game, even though it's also a book. which I liked.
Yeah.
So
Same. I mean, going in not knowing much about it, I was like, oh, what is this? What is this going to be? And then he comes out and he looks exactly like the video game. And of course, it's Henry Cavill, so he's the most handsome thing ever. And
Okay.
next,
Ben the Witcher is insulted.
Henry, we need to talk about that.
next after Ben, obviously. No, but like I think they did a great job with casting. And like she said, the first that first scene of him fighting that monster in the lake, I was just like, what have I gotten myself into? And it's just been a wild ride. Also, I'm in the chat, everybody. Hi, everyone in the chat. It's kind of going off. So really quickly, Stephen Fate, hello. Mason, hi. And Spiro. So hi to everyone
Thank
in
you
the chat.
guys.
Hey, what's up? And I felt like, wow, I wanted to be him. I mean, I was like, damn, what a scene. I mean, how can you go like crazy like that in the first moment, right? I was
Yeah.
like- and I felt like, oh my God, he felt like a superhero to me a little bit, because when I saw his eyes, I was like, he has to have some superpowers or something.
Yeah.
Like a super Saiyan or something like that.
And they establish him as kind of this. We know that he's good based on his reaction with the deer. It was sad for me to watch because I knew it was going to happen, but I also respected his attitude toward the poor animal. That on the one hand, it was a mercy kill because he understood that the poor creature was in pain. But let's jump a little bit. I just wanted to mention that. We see that he enters the town of Blaviken, and that's where things really start to unfold. We meet Renfri, we meet Marilka, and we start to get a sense of what's happening here and who he is. And very quickly after we're introduced to this world, we're then introduced to Stregobar as well, who seems like he's going to be the main antagonist for this show.
I totally agree. At the beginning, I felt like he was kind of nice because he comes in and you see all this like paradise kind of like, and it was like, okay, why do they have naked women just getting apples from the tree and stuff like that? It was a little interesting to me.
I love that when we met him, it was all about a monster being a monster on the outside versus the inside,
Right.
and the illusions that people present to the world. And this was his illusion. And then we were also introduced to this idea of the curse of the Black Sun. So we meet him. We learn that he wants Renfri killed. But then on top of that, we also learn that she's part of a group of children, female children, it sounds like, who were born under this curse of Lililt, which I found fascinating. And it was interesting that they already have given us such a strong, premise for what we're going to expect. And it also puts the Witcher, Geralt, in this really terrible position because Renfri's obviously somebody that he's already, we think, bonding with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting for me because it was like, I feel like The Witcher just walked into something that it was so over his head. Like, he didn't want to be any part of this. And, like, everyone was throwing these things at him, being like, which is the worst evil or whatever. And he was just like, I don't want to be this bad guy. And, like, everyone's like, well, you have to help me, you know? So that's what I thought was interesting, was that I feel like he didn't want to be to have any part of this, and he was just thrown into it, you know?
Yeah.
And I liked his kind of like his attitude, his character at the very beginning when I saw him the first time, and he started talking his very deep voice, you know, and I was like, okay, what kind of guy is that, right? I think he has a very dry sense of humor in a way, but he's a good person at the end of it. I felt like when we saw the deer and stuff, I felt like, wow, he's really feeling for the animal right now, which showed me, hey, he's not a bad guy per se or something, or is trying to kill everybody, but he really just wants to make the right thing right now.
And that's the thing that really allows me to connect with Geralt, is that he's not just going with one person or the other. Stregobar, we get that he's very, hesitant to actually kill for him. But then when we get another scene between Geralt and Renfri, we start to learn a little bit more about what actually happened to her. And she kind of mocks the story that Stregobar told, which is that Renfri escaped, killed the man that was, killed the man that was chasing her. Yeah. Right. And then that was that. But we later learn from Renfri, according to her, and to me it's hard to know who's actually telling the truth. And I think that's the point, is that we really don't know. But with Renfri, I felt genuinely bad for her, learning that it was a rape and that it had completely changed her. She'd been a princess, and that she had kind of turned into this very dark figure because of her traumatic experiences as a child.
Yeah, I was definitely Team Renfri at that point, because I was like, she's definitely the one who suffered more in this situation.
Now, let me ask you guys this, though. With Renfri, how much do you think is truthful on her part, and how much do you think is actually her seducing Geralt and working her magic on people to get them to believe her and take her side?
That's a very tough question, to be honest, because at the
Yeah.
very beginning, I didn't like her. I felt like she was like one of the bad people in the show.
Yeah.
Seriously, I couldn't really trust her at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she always kind of like helped him at the very beginning. But when he's in the woods and he or she's coming up to him, I feel like, okay, what is she trying to do with him right now? She's kind of using him for her advantage.
Yeah.
And that was like, why is she doing that? But then at the end of the day, when she's trying to kill, what's her name, Marilka?
Milk.
Yeah.
Milka,
Milka,
yeah.
Milka. I feel like she has to do something like that because she's working for Stregobar, right? So
Yeah.
this little girl,
Yeah.
she's kind of working
Yeah.
for him. So she just wanted to get rid of that little girl to get closer to this guy in
Yeah.
order to kill him as well. So I feel like, and now knowing her history, I feel like I kind of understand,
Yeah.
where she's coming from.
She
but-
had to do the things.
yeah,
she
pretty
had
much.
to
I
do.
would have done the same, I think,
And I agree with you all. My only thing is that I did notice this seductive nature to her, especially when
Yeah.
she says, yes, she agreed. Like Renfri, or Geralt basically says, hey, you should just go and live your life. Stop trying to kill this Stregobar guy. Let go of your vengeance and let go of this idea of revenge and leave. And she actually tells him, I agree. At this point, when I saw this, before we got to the ending, I thought, okay, maybe she's actually come to her senses and there's going to be this love story. And then they slept together. And then we got this whole thing with her basically pushing, like, basically showing him the future. What did you guys make of all of that? With the messages that she was sending him, especially as it relates to the princess, which we're going to get to in a moment here.
Please,
Yeah,
ladies
no,
first.
I just think that that was her goal from the beginning, was to get this message across to him. Even in the end, like, we'll get to the fight scene and all that, but
Yeah.
even in the end, like, that was her main goal. She had to do these things, and I think her seductive nature, excuse me, and doing all these things was just to get that message across, because that was clearly the whole premise of this whole show, is to get, we'll talk about it, but the princess and the Witcher together.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Well, on Destiny, they've been pounding that word into the ground. So clearly, Destiny, everybody is in on this. Like, it's Destiny. We can't change anything about it. We have to make sure it happens, kind of thing. Because if Destiny doesn't happen, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
So that's a part of it too. That's what her role in it as well. They all know, except for like him, apparently. Like, he's kind of just going with the flow at the moment. So
One of the things I want to point out too is that we're going to talk about Sintra and Princess Cyrilla in a moment, because obviously it ties in heavily. One of the things that we get from Renfri is that she mentions Queen Calanth, and that Renfri, who obviously was a princess, could have been doing a lot, and that Queen Calanth had just won one of her first battles. So we get this sense that, okay, at this point, between the B storyline that we're going to get to with the princess, this is actually happening sometime in the past.
Right.
That is what we're like. And they don't even, like, I really love that tie-in, and I love that Destiny was a thing that they were talking about, way in the past before we even get to what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It was just a really interesting tie-in the way that they did this.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about the fight really fast. And when Geralt does go back into Blaviken, and everything that Renfri predicted ends up happening
Yeah.
with him. It was just a really crazy turn of events. First, we have the fight between him and Renfri. What I was expecting that she was. I was just expecting it to go a little bit differently than it did.
Yeah.
What did you guys think?
Before we get into it, in the chat they're saying, Spiro says, Henry nailed it. He was so smooth and good. You feel like the sword was an extension of his body. And he also said, what an amazing choreography.
Yeah.
People in the chat are loving that fight scene. So.
Oh my
Absolutely.
god. That was
100%.
amazing.
fantastic.
And I appreciated that they didn't make Renfri weak, which she's obviously not weak, but they presented her as a formidable ally, or not ally, formidable, fight partner, I guess, if you want to call it that. And when she lost, it was kind of just her own, like, I almost felt like she wanted to lose, and
Yeah.
she knew that she had to.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, that was her goal, was from the beginning, was to get this message to Geralt, and she was like, I'm gonna lose, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I also felt like the way how she was looking at him, that she felt more for him. Even that she was probably using him at the very beginning to get him to this point, to tell him the destiny.
Yeah.
I feel like she was feeling something for him. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But she was kind of in between. Okay, I have to work on my destiny part, so I can't really overcome. I have to overcome my own feelings right now for this person or something. You know.
So, and it's interesting too because once we get all of that, it's like she knew that she had to be exactly where she was at that moment, and at the very end, that's when Stregobar steps in, and instead of paying him, because obviously Geralt didn't really choose a side, he chose nothing, and so he gets the crappy end of the stick. He killed Renfri anyway, even though he didn't want to. Stregobar wants to actually dissect her and
He's
dig,
like, no.
which is creepy, so creepy.
So
Yeah.
creepy.
And then Geralt's basically forced to go, and that's it. And even I think what made me the saddest is that even Marilka turned on him in a way,
Yeah.
because she had to.
That was the saddest part of the whole episode for me, was when she was just like, she turned on him. She was like, "You need to go." I was like, he was so nice to
He
you.
just saved your life.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Like, why you gotta do that? You're so mean. Whatever.
And that's one of the things. Like it just feels like in this world, even if you don't want to do something, sometimes you're forced to make the lesser evil choice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in her case, it was for survival. She needed to choose to abandon him like
Totally.
this.
Yeah.
Totally.
Just so everyone knows, they're playing a drinking game in the chat every time we say Destiny. So there's
All
We
right.
just said it again.
so everyone.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
My destiny now is to say destiny
Cheers.
very often.
I guess in the show itself they were playing that game already, so they're gonna play it in the
Okay.
after show.
Cool.
So,
All right.
All right.
cheers to Destiny.
Cheers.
So,
I like coffee.
speaking of Destiny, let's talk about the other part of this Destiny, which is
Wow! Did you hear that?
Sorry,
Oh my
guys.
god, I love that.
which is in Sintra. Let's segue here and talk about the queen, the princess. What a crazy... And we got this... It was kind of like, intermingled with the storyline A. What a crazy situation, though. And I felt so bad for the princess. And So we get this whole storyline where she basically has been sheltered her whole life. And at the very end, the Nilfgaardians come and they attack, and they actually win. And it was just so sad for me to watch literally everybody that she's known die.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the only question that I had at the very beginning, I mean, we realized that, she also, Cyrilla, right? She has superpowers.
Yeah.
So she has this, she can yell like crazy and people just feel like pain everywhere and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, if she has superpowers, her grandma also has to have some kind of superpower, right?
Not
she-
necessarily.
So this
But-
is what was confusing to me, is
Right.
that, and I think that we're going to find out eventually. Since we're not doing predictions, we'll kind of talk about this now.
Yeah.
With her powers, I thought that it was somehow, even though she was not born during the time of the Curse of the Black Sun, I thought that somehow it was connected and that they
Right.
were really heavily pushing that point.
Yeah.
Even though this seems to be sometime in the future, in the future of what we're dealing with Renfri and Geralt.
Yeah.
But that would be my guess, that somehow it's connected to Lililt.
Yeah, for sure, because
Yeah.
I feel like they said it a couple of times, Nilfgaard, the people of Nilfgaard, they just come for her.
Yeah.
So she's the main purpose of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which makes me thinking, okay, there must be something special about her, right?
Yeah.
And then Mousak, this guy, has this kind of power to protect the gate. So even this guy, who's like working for the queen, has these kind of superpowers. So I was just a little confused. Why does the queen doesn't have any kind of superpower?
Yeah.
If even Mousak, the guy who's working for her, has kind of something, you know?
Yeah.
Isn't Mousak his sage? Or mage, I'm sorry.
Mage. Yeah.
I think the mage.
The mage,
yeah.
he's the
Yeah.
mage. So every kingdom has a mage. It's like a special, powerful being that helps protect the kingdom and protect the
You
king.
see?
So
That's why I don't read books. I should
So
know.
yeah, and a lot of this, we
Yeah.
didn't mention it earlier, but that's why even with the whole entire episode, it very much reminded me of like a Dungeons and Dragon campaign where you have all these different fantasy
Different classes.
classes and races, and you even see that there's like the when he's in the last scene where they kind of all hate him and all that stuff. There's so much prejudice from other classes to humans and humans to other monsters. So we're seeing all of that in here.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think, like, did the author, which I know I will not be able to pronounce his name, did he just write out his Dungeons and Dragons campaign? Like, is that what this is? Because that's what it feels like to me.
It does, and
Yeah.
it's interesting too because I've only read 80 pages of this book, but speaking to that, where we get the sense that in the show, Witchers are a dying class.
Yes, of course.
In the book, which I think I'm getting the feeling it was set actually before all of these events. It wasn't quite like that yet.
Oh, there were still like many of them.
And when he's been going on his different when he's been going on his different quests,
Yeah.
they have even made comments that, oh, there are so many witchers and not enough monsters. So obviously between the book and what we're dealing with here,
Yeah.
things have changed and
Yeah.
something happened
Yeah.
that like maybe some kind of purge or something of witchers.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, like you said, about the prejudices and what a witcher, the connotation behind that term and how people, even when he walks into the inn,
Yeah.
they don't want to deal with
Yeah.
him. And it's
Yeah.
the same in the book.
Yeah.
They just don't want to deal. Like
Yeah.
But with Sintra and the princess, we do see a lot of even with her. I feel like the prejudices go beyond, obviously beyond a witcher. Different people with power, it's like it's too much of a threat for certain groups, and they can't deal
Yeah.
with it. And she's a threat to people.
And we don't even know, she doesn't even know the power that she has. I feel like a lot of people don't know what she can do. Only certain people do. And, we only got a little bit of a taste of it in this first episode. But it's like, we don't know the calamity that she can put on these people.
And she doesn't know either.
She doesn't.
She's been sheltered by her mom, or her grandma, pardon me.
Her grandma,
So she has no idea, because you feel like the grandma doesn't want her to know that she has a power.
Yeah.
And you're like, why? Like, couldn't you be using that? Or, at least preparing her for when you are no longer there. Because she did not prepare her at all. Like, she tried to tell her that there was no threat to them getting attacked and stuff.
I'm not even sure. I think the grandma, I think the queen, she didn't even know about the superpower, because she said
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like, I
she
saw
does.
it too. I saw it too.
She didn't know, yeah.
She didn't know.
I think she had an idea.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe,
what
that's
I
right.
don't think she knew for certain because
Yeah.
they had never seen it.
Yeah.
But I think she had an idea. I think it's somehow connected to the parents.
Okay.
But it is crazy though, because obviously Cirilla does not know what she can do. Even her grandparents, like I get the feeling they knew that she was capable of something very great.
Yeah.
But this is a person who, when she screeched, she split the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is intense.
That's intense.
Oh yeah.
And this is like, I felt bad for the horse.
Yeah.
Like, poor thing and its ears. But
Yeah.
she's so young. Who can say how strong she's going to get, especially when she has the right mentor. And I think that's part of it, is that when she does find Geralt, I don't know that he would have a way of helping her, because he doesn't he's not. I don't feel like she's a witcher, but.
No.
Yeah, but it's interesting. So that was, I think, outside of that, just to kind of talk a little bit more about her before we get to our special predictions. What do you guys? You've seen the first season, so maybe I should direct this question at you, Ben.
Okay.
What do you think is going to happen with her?
With Cirilla, with
Yeah,
the
with
with the princess,
yeah.
I think that she's kind of like she's running off, right? Obviously,
She's running
I think
off.
she's definitely meeting him at some point. And I also believe, by the way, that the Witcher, like Geralt, he has more power that we saw. He has more than, because we can see it in like a couple of seconds that he also has this kind of power where he can just push people away without touching them or something. He has kind of a superpower. You see that for a minute.
The thing, I only know this from the books. The thing with the Witcher is that there are elixirs that he takes that heighten his power.
Right.
He is, I think, technically human, but he's
Right.
like a human plus.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like it's honestly, this show to me right now, what we are talking about, reminds me a little bit of X-Men, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that, right?
Absolutely.
And I think he's gonna be like the professor at some point to her, who's kind of teaching her how to use her power like properly.
Yeah.
That's what I feel is going to happen. Not in the second episode. I can't see it that early. I think she basically has to fight some stuff in the woods or something like that. But and I also believe that Stregobar is pretty much after her as well, because I believe this kid means power in this world.
Yeah.
That's what it is,
absolutely.
because the world depends on her.
And it mirrored too much of what happened to Renfri.
Yeah.
To not be connected.
For sure.
Stregobar, I feel like he is behind all of this.
Oh, for sure. Totally.
And now that Witcher has had his taste of what this man is capable of doing and his anger, I feel like they knew, Renfri knew maybe, that Geralt would be capable of actually choosing a side after this, but that at the moment with Renfri, he was not capable of doing so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So, okay, with the time that we have left, let's go ahead and dive into our segments. First, we're going to talk about the choreography in Witcher.
Okay, I'll just go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
so first of all, like obviously it is a video game, and so this is where you're really wondering how is it going to kind of remind people, like some people are going to be comparing it to the video game, and so that's going to be in the fighting scenes, of course. And I like the music.
Yeah,
This is
nice.
All right.
nice, you guys.
Okay.
I was kind
Yeah. So
creepy.
I like it.
He kicked ass. Okay, I was super hyped that entire scene, for one, but it was so well choreographed with the sword work and everything, and just like the part where Renfri had the dagger and the sword, and like she was crossing them, and then just the beautiful, beautiful way that how she ended up getting killed. Like it was just choreographed so well that you're like, if you blinked, you'd miss it almost. And it was just, they all made it look like they were professionals. And so I thought it's a great job by the stunt coordinator and stunt people in this scene, because it definitely added to this guy will mess you up.
Sure.
Don't anger him. Like, don't anger him. I don't know why people think you should ever anger someone like that.
Yeah.
So I just it was almost like, since we're listening to this music, it's almost kind of like a dance, but with swords.
Yeah. And that's exactly it, is that, and literally that's what I was going to say,
Yeah.
is that it's this fluid dance where two people, like even if it's out of anger and even if it is a fight, it still has to flow a certain way. And if it doesn't, I can only imagine all the time that they had to practice that, and it definitely shows in the final product.
Yeah, just like in the chat said, you know, the sword was an extension of his body, and that's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah.
It was just like pure fluid movement.
Yeah.
And when
Also,
he sliced his head this way, did you guys see that? He like stabbed the guy and then pulled the sword back out of his brain, and I was like,
Yeah.
But also
Right.
shout out to the editor and special effects guys. I mean, seriously, because it's also about the post at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you do a lot of stuff on set, but the post-production is a very important part when it comes to these kind of scenes.
Yeah.
And that did an amazing job.
Absolutely,
Seriously,
absolutely.
It's not easy to do something like that, you know. So
In
great.
the chat, Spiro says, fun fact, Henry Cavill did all his fight scenes himself. He didn't want anyone to look at the screen and see someone different than Geralt.
Wow.
I really appreciate
his commitment and like love for this role definitely is going to be hiding in those scenes, because he wanted this. He's played the games, he's read the books. If you haven't watched the video of him
Yeah.
reading the book, you definitely should.
Watch it.
It's
that's
very-
cool. I like when actors are like, you know what, I'm going to commit.
Yeah.
It's the best thing.
that. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can tell when somebody actually is enjoying what they're doing too.
Yeah.
So, next, let's jump to news, because we do have a little bit there.
AfterBuzz TV News.
All right, so Forbes.com had an article was talking about how the show has caused 2 of the original books to land on the New York Times bestsellers list, and they came out a while ago. Like, they're old books. I don't remember
They're-
exactly what year they came out.
So it was originally in Poland. They were published
in
in
Polish.
Poland in 93 and 94
Right.
were the first 2.
Yes.
They were translated into English in 2007 and 2008. the first
All
2
right, so
books.
this is a long time ago for them to go on the bestsellers list now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. The demand for the books is so high that the publisher cannot seem to keep up. So on Amazon, there's like a 2 to 3 week wait just to get it shipped. And then on Amazon, The Last Wish, which is the short stories, which is the one that this season is based off of. The first book, Blood of Elves, and then Sword of Destiny, which is, I believe, the second one, are the number 1, number 3, and number 12 most sold books right now, including in bookstores. Like, since the article came out, they found out Barnes & Noble, all these other bookstores have sold out of it, which is awesome for physical media, because not many people do physical media anymore. I downloaded them on my Kindle because
Yeah.
it was just the easiest route. Netflix has also declared it's the second most successful original of the year, behind only Stranger Things. And then they're also in the news was talking about Mandalorian numbers were not as good as
Wow.
The Witcher, which is also interesting to see how time tells on that, because obviously they're both only in their first season. But it still shows Netflix has a few viewers, you know.
Yeah.
And then also Witcher 3, the game, has experienced a surge in popularity since its original launch in 2015, because people are also eating up the game. And I believe it's like was discounted, but I wonder if it'll still be discounted now that people want it again. So
Yeah.
so it's, and also the show, the article continues to talk about how they kind of didn't know how the show would do. Like, there's a lot of people who weren't familiar with it, a lot of people who never heard of it, but it's doing very well considering that not everybody knows a lot about it. And that's awesome, because I think it also has to do with people having a lack of fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, Game of Thrones ended, people want another fantasy story that can take them out of the real world. So I think that would be another reason is, you know, people
bringing new
flocking to it.
fans to
Yeah,
a
and I
absolute
mean-
story.
I think Henry Cavill has a little bit to do with that. a lot to do with that. Like, that's why my roommate watched it. So yeah, but that's our news for this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking about that. The only other thing I want to mention that kind of goes off that is that when I went in to buy this book, I went into an actual Amazon store. It was the last one on the shelf.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so if that
You
speaks...
know what that is?
It was Destiny!
Uh-huh.
And I was up in the air about whether I was going to buy a physical copy or go with Kindle. But yeah, when I saw that one, I was like, yep, Destiny is calling.
yeah.
Drinks to that.
Let's have a drink. Let's have a
Everyone is
drink,
going to be
baby.
so drunk at the end of our show.
Sorry, guys. All right. Well, since we are not doing predictions, let's go ahead and just talk about where everyone can find us until next episode. Katie, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at KT_Christine and on other shows here on AfterBuzz, such as Batwoman on Sunday nights at 10.
I'm Olivia Di Bortoli. You can find me at Olivia Di Bortoli on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm all up in the comments and the chats on the YouTube video, and I'm on the Arrow After Show. So there's 2 episodes left after Crisis.
And Ben?
Oh yeah, Destiny. Okay. So and I had to say that. Okay, why not? Name is Benjamin Schnau. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Benjamin Schnau. And I also do the show We Are the Wave in German and English for you guys, and also The World According to Jeff Goldblum on Tuesday.
Ooh,
nice.
Oh yeah.
And I am Rachel Goodman. You can find me on Twitter at Rach Goodman or on Instagram on my author account at Rachel Radner Author. I am also on the Restless Rap After Show at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm on the finale of Man in the High Castle tonight, which is airing at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm doing Ray Donovan, and then we'll be back tonight for episode 2 of The Witcher at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until then, we will talk to you later.
We'll see you soon.
Wow, what don't you?
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.